Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you the integration between Auth0 and SAP Fiori Launchpad on-prem system. So for this purpose, we need Auth0 login credentials, which you can get it by registering a free developer account on Auth0 and SAP NetWeaver system. Now you could do this integration on your corporate systems, or you can download ABAP 1909 Docker container and you can install that container on your local network for a trial version. So I have already prepared both the systems. I have created my account on Auth0 and I have also installed ABAP 1909 Docker container on my local network. So let me switch my camera and then we'll get started with. So here you can see the first screen, which is the SAML2 transaction. So as soon as you launch SAML2 transaction, it will bring you on this page. SAML2 has two components. One acts as a primary identity provider, and the other system acts as a service provider. So in this case, Auth0 will act as a primary identity provider, and SAP system will be a service provider. So we will start our configuration from SAP. We will create first the service provider in SAP NetWeaver, and then we will move to Auth0. We will create a primary identity provider in Auth0. Then we will download those certificates, and then I will put it in SAP NetWeaver. So first thing first, so we'll go here and then we'll create a local provider or a service provider. I'll give this name as Auth0. Next, no change here. Now this identity provider discovery common domain cookie, if we set it automatic, and if there's only one primary identity provider, then the URL will directly redirect to that one. But if we set it manual, then if there's more than one, then system is going to prompt you to choose which primary identity provider you want to select for the login. So in this case, we will just leave it as automatic and finish. Okay, so now our service provider is active and ready. Now we will go to applications on Auth0. So in Auth0, we have to navigate under applications, and then here I need to create an application. We'll call let's call Fiori. It doesn't matter what application type we choose. I tried with all of them and it works fine. So I will leave it native, continue. Now on this page, we don't have to change any settings. We'll go on this page, the second page. This is where we will be making changes. So the first thing, what it requires is the application login URI. This is the login page for Fiori Launchpad. Now, as you can see it here, I have already put that value here, so it's been prompted. So this is basically pointing my external facing domain with a port and the path for Fiori Launchpad. The second thing we need is allowed callback URL, which is the assertion consumer service. So this URL is typically I have copied it here. I will show you. Typically it's a fixed path. So it will have a first component as a host, followed by port, and then the path is fixed, like SAP SAML2 SP ACS and /client. So in this case it's a developer system, which is 001 client. So that's the client. And that's all the configuration we need on this page. So let's save. Next config is under add-ons. Like I said, this is the SAML2 authentication. So we have to activate SAML2 here. And once we activate SAML2 here, this provides us the identity provider metadata. Now, once we have this identity provider metadata, we can use this metadata information in SAP NetWeaver to configure the trust relationship between these systems. So let's download that first. I will take a note of the file. It's 2, and then I'll go to SAP NetViewer in a SAML2 transaction, and under trusted providers we will create a new trusted provider by using this metadata file. Now there are two options. You could do it manually, or you can just use the you can upload the metadata file. So in our case, we already have a metadata file, so we'll just upload that. Next, we don't need to change anything. If you want to give an alias, this is the alias which is going to show in the logon page if you have more than one identity provider. So in my case, it's just one, so I will leave alias as empty. Next, there is no change on this page as well, because most of the settings are brought by the metadata file, so we don't have to touch those settings. We can leave them as is and it should work fine. Single sign-on endpoints, so these are coming from the metadata file again, so I'm not going to change these as well. No changes in logout endpoints, no artifacts endpoints. This is the place where we need to make a change now. So authentication context settings you can set up based on your security policy. In my case, I'm just going to set it minimum, and then we have to add the list of requested authentication contexts. In this case, I will add password protected transport, but you can choose whichever is better for your need. So okay, and then finish. So up until this point, we have configured the SAP NetWeaver as a service provider, and then we imported the primary identity provider as Auth0, and we have configured a trusted provider. Now one thing is missing, which is setting an identity between the Auth0 and the SAP user. So the trust is already there. Now if someone logs on Auth0, which will give a ticket which will be forwarded to SAP NetWeaver, and the system will validate that ticket and it will allow user to log in. To have this transaction happen, the system needs to have an identifier. So Auth0 should tell SAP system that this is the user, and that mapping is here, which is the identity attributes on a SAML. So we can go here, let's edit under identity, and these are the options we have. So we could choose like Windows name, Cabros if you're using the AD and so on. In this example, I will be using email, because using email on both sides is easier. We have email in the Auth0, and we also have email. We can set alias, user alias as an email address in SAP NetWeaver. So this is the simplest and easiest way we could achieve this mapping. So I will select email here, and then under user mapping, so the assertion subject name would be the user ID source is the assertion subject name, which will be forwarded by Auth0, and user ID mapping mode here. Since it's an email on Auth0, but on SAP side, we are not using that as an email, but we will be using it as a login alias. Now, if you go in SU01 and if you type username under I think user profile, there's an option called user alias, and there you can enter the email ID as the user alias. So this is the binding between Auth0 user and SAP NetWeaver user. So we'll leave that as login alias, save, and enable. Okay, local provider, it's already active. So the configuration part on SAP is complete. Now the system is set up as a secondary system or a service provider system, and we have already set up a trusted provider as the Auth0 as a primary identity provider. Now the only thing left on Auth0 is these attributes. So we set up this email ID as the attribute to identify user in SAP NetWeaver, but we have to tell Auth0 to send email ID as the user identity attribute, and that is the setting, which we can do it here. So you can read all these options. There are a lot of attributes we can use in SAML2. So just to keep it limited, or just to save time, I have already prepared this configuration file. So I will replace these changes. The only important identifier is this one, the email address, format email address, name identifier format. So this is the one which takes email ID from Auth0 and then it forwards to SAP Native Viewer, and then they identify the user. So with that update, all the settings on this page are good. So let's enable, save. So say changes have been saved, cancel is active. Save changes. Okay, so all the changes, it seems, are good. Now the last thing is I need to have the external access of my SAP system enabled. Right now this is sitting behind the DMZ, or behind the firewall. So I have to turn on I have to activate the port, so Auth0 can reach to the system which is on my internal network, and then it will be then it can forward the login URL to Auth0, so they can communicate with each other. So that I will be doing it here on the side. This is very specific setting to my local network or my network. On your network, you need to work with network team. If you're doing at home, then you have to figure out in your router how to activate or how to forward your ports. Now I have just opened the port, which is the 44300 port. Now my SAP network system is accessible externally. So now we can test our configuration. So I have to use the Launchpad login page. That is here. I kept it on the side. So this is my external domain. This is my port on the network, and then this is the path, and well, basically this is the Launchpad URL. So let's try advance, proceed. So this will prompt and you can see the difference. As soon as I open the Launchpad URL, it got forwarded to Auth0. This is where I will be logging with my user ID and a password. And now we can see the authentication succeeded on Auth0. Then Auth0 took my credentials or the certificate, it forwarded to SAP NetViewer, and we are able to log in SAP NetViewer Launchpad. And from this point onward, this is a straightforward, like a simple process. We are just accessing the Launchpad. So that's all I wanted to show you in this video. So if you have any suggestions, comments, just let me know down below in the comment. I will leave the GitHub link for the configuration file, which I have used it under here, under SAML2 settings. These settings I will leave you on my GitHub repository. You can find it down below in the description. Thank you.